Well, forgive me, I'm suffering a bit, but I have here a original 1974 Gibson ES335, and it's one of the ones with the legendary one of the ones they called the Fretless Wonders, because you had frets that were so flat, as you can see, even from the from new, they were flat deliberately, low and flat, and they were great apparently for jazz players, but they're not really suitable for modern players. So Mark has brought me this, inherited from his dad, who was very much, I think, a jazz player. Now you'll see on there just a moment, that's a temporary replacement because the original has some problems, so I'm going to look into that. But just to quickly show you then, we have this lovely old thing belonging to Mark's late father, who passed it down to him, bequeathed it to him, and Mark has had it sort of stored away for a while, and it's not, he doesn't find it playable with the frets as they are, so he's come to me and asked for could I do a refret. So of course I can. I know a lot of people who see a video like this will immediately get freaked out and start shouting about how it's so much more valuable if it's left original, and that's not something I'm disputing. I've talked long and hard with Mark about the investment value, if you like, of the guitar staying in its original condition versus being made to play in a more conventional way that suits him, and he wants it to play in the conventional way with conventional frets, wide and not too wide, and medium jumbo. Really is wide, a little bit flatter than tall, but still, new frets that can bend notes, whereas these can't. So we're going to do it, and we're going to refret it. Now let's see if I can just put these down. My wrist is really bad at the moment. I had a bike crash years and years ago when I was young and stupid, motorcycle crash, and it smashed up all the little faces of the cartilagey faces of the bone in my wrist, bones in my wrist, and I think using a spray can, turning my wrist from side to side, has aggravated it. So I'm in quite a bit of pain, and it won't go away, but it will eventually improve. So we've got these extremely low frets, which we're going to remove. Interestingly, on this side here, there is, you might say, the tiniest hint of a nib, but so little you wouldn't even notice it. But we're going to leave it as it is. We won't lose it or do anything to it. In a sense, I will aim to fret straight onto that little nib where it was before, but you can see this, where's the thing on, there it is. So you can see in certain places that nib doesn't quite come up, or it's, you can see the end of the fret there. So I don't want to put an edge beveling file up against this old fingerboard. I don't want to risk tearing off loads of old finish. I mean, I can build it up again if it happens, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a slow version where I hand cut each fret and hand finish each fret. Now, I said to Mark, the downside of doing that is that the positive about using an end beveling file is because you're mechanically going down the edge of the fingerboard like so, you are cutting all the frets at exactly the same length, but in order to get them flush with the binding or the fingerboard edge, you have to contact the fingerboard edge. You can't stop short by a micron, otherwise the edge of the fret sticks out as a kind of burr or a cutting edge, like a chisel edge. So if you use a edge beveling file, you have to be conscious that it will run into the finish, and you have to be prepared to touch up the finish, whether it's polyurethane or whether it's in this case nitrocellulose. So we could do that, but I'm going to follow the tracks of a refret I did on a Gibson, the last Gibson I did with nibs, where I basically cut everything to length and fretted inside that. Now that's a very boring thing, because you have to stop and measure and stop and measure and sand and stop, measure, file, sand. You know, you're trying to take it back tiny bit by tiny bit until you've got exactly the right width. And you can do it by measuring each of them up to a point, and then the final bit is sort of fine tuning with sandpaper and then making sure it drops in. So there's quite a few stages before that. The frets I've cut are they are 2.7 by actually I bought a couple of things. So just a quick look. Can't remember now. Yeah, I bought some frets pre-cut in a pack. The problem with it, and I suspected this, is that the original radius of this neck is not the 12 inches you'd expect. It's in fact about 9, and it's pretty consistently 9 all the way up. So either that's how it came out, or over the years it's kind of rounded off in time. I don't know, but it's about 9 and it's not 12. So the 12-inch radius and pre-cut pieces that I've got, I'm not going to use on this because they will be too flat, and I want these slightly tighter than that. So I've radiused these to about 9, just under 9 or something like that. These things here. So there's a lot of stuff to do, and the first stuff to do really is to prepare to remove these original frets, and they're so flat. I'm not sure how any fret pulling pliers will work, and maybe we have to kind of help them to lift up with a blade or something. We'll see. So we're going to go, I guess I'm just going to take the strings off. I suppose we'll take the nut off, take the truss rod cover off, check the working of the truss rod and see if we can just add a little bit of back bow. The other thing, by the way, once we've done the refret on this, the other thing we've got to be concerned of is that over there the electrics are all a bit worn, so the switches aren't working properly and the pots aren't that great either. And I think one of them is loose, and I don't know whether that's the pot that's loose or just the top, but we'll find out and we'll do our best to put it right. But I'm obviously nervous about pulling out switches. These switches are in fact sealed units, so I don't know how much cleaning I'm going to be able to get inside of there, but we'll see them when we get to them. Of course, very nerve-wracking, the thought of taking out any parts through these F-holes, because if the wiring's old and tired, then it's going to potentially anything I move around in here is going to break, and I could be in a world of misery very quickly. Now, once I've removed the frets from here, I'm going to leave most of the fingerboard the way it is. I don't want to refinish it and take Mark's dad's kind of finger touch off there. It's been handled by him all these years, and I want to obviously respect that and leave it on to keep the connection between Mark and his dad. But that means that the surface I've got, once I've pulled these frets out, will be very crunchy, especially around the slots, obviously. So I'm going to have to do quite a bit of very boring work, and I probably won't record all of it because it's dreary as anything. But I have a tool that I made myself, which is a very clever bit of, if I may say so, a little bit of radiused wire that I have cut the tang off a whole section of it. So it's just got the crown, and then to the underside of the crown I've stuck self-adhesive 400 grit paper, and I've got a few strips lined up. So what I can do is, once I pull the fret out, I can go across the crunchy area around the fret, the slot that the tang goes into. So I can do quite a bit of cleaning up and smooth that down, because I want the new frets to sit in on top of that. So I have gone for 1.3mm, because I know with an old neck like this it's going to be very difficult, because I can't re-radius the whole board and make it as if it was brand new. It's going to be very difficult to be certain that all the frets sit perfectly evenly. We're also fretting inside a binding, a very thin binding, so we're going to have to go as close as we can. And part of the game here is to It's always part of the game, but part of the game is to, excuse my fingers, they're horribly scarred and horrible. Yeah, we're going to undercut a little bit on both ends, and of course the idea is that this is probably not the right one, no, it's completely the wrong one, but the idea is we cut the underhang so that the tang fits in perfectly. If you look to the left side, just onto that part there, we want to get as close as we can. I found in the past that when you cut the overhang on cut off the tang and create an overhang, there's something about that process that, oh, my hands hurt, my wrist hurts. Something about that process that very slightly and weirdly causes that end here that I'm touching to possibly lift up a little bit. It's very difficult to get it to sit. So what you don't want, or you want as little of that material hanging over. You only want the 1 or so millimeter that just goes over the edge here, just to cover the binding. So very, very little. In fact, none of these actually overlap the binding. That's the interesting thing about this. They all stop before the binding, you will note. See that? So none of them, in fact, probably none of them have any overhang at all, which maybe helps to keep the very ends down. So yeah, it's interesting that, to be absolutely technically correct, none of them overhang. You can see that on both sides there. So I just need to be recreating this same thing. And if I can get it to stop just inside, and then obviously that is a little smoother than if I was leaving a bit overhanging, which is far better. But I can deal with a bit of overhang if, well, I wouldn't want overhang, I'd want it flush, but I'd only be aiming to get that manually. But let's see if we can just keep it. I'll use the original fret, hopefully, as a thing to measure it by. So what I'm going to just do over here is find me a bit of foamy stuff, which I can left over from something else. Let me just chop it in half-ish. Something like that. We'll stick the new ones in front. It's not the best stuff in the world, but I'm just going to poke them all in there just to hold them out of the way in order, because keeping it in order now when I compare it to the originals is going to be very important. Now this sounds like a really long-winded way, and compared to putting them all in and using the edge beveling file, it really is a long way around of doing it, but it is far less offensive if you do it with the old end beveling file. It is quicker, but it is quite a lot more brutal. So I think we'll go for the slow and gentle, especially when we're dealing with something as old and venerable as this guitar. So I'm just squeaking my way to the end. I know people use bits of wood for this job. Okay, so there's my, sorry, you didn't see any of that. There's my little pile of frets standing up. So in a minute we will get down to, and that's a spare one out the way, don't get them mixed up. So let's start now by, let's remove the truss rod cover, and we're going to use all of the usual stuff to help us remove the fret. So we'll have the soldering iron, and a little bit of heat and a little bit of dampness when we come to it. We're replacing that nut with a black one because the fittings are all nice and quite a lot of nice black fittings. So this doesn't want to lift up at the moment, so let's see if we can just persuade it lightly. There we go. Looks dry and in decent shape there. Let's start by removing the strings. What the view's like down there, zoomed out. Okay. I probably should keep these strings actually, so that we can reuse them briefly as sacrificial strings when we put the new frets on. So I will put them there. So fretting a guitar like this, where it's a set neck and a set neck. Some people like to use the Stumac hand gripping file thing, sort of hand clamp with a what do they call that thing? A brass insert for the correct radius or whatever. Because this radius is not exact, I will probably just use a little brass punch and a little hammer just to tap them in. That's my preferred way of doing it. You get a fair way up, maybe up to about the 14th fret at most, using the press, but it's quite clumsy to feed the neck into it. You have to raise the whole body, and you can sometimes end up getting a sort of change between the two parts that you fret. You know, one done by tapping and one done by pressing. At least that's what my head tells me. So let's just take these off to one side, these strings, and they're pretty dirty, but they'll do hopefully for the next bit. And I'll just put them over here, safe. Oh, my wrist. Right, I've just checked this. There shouldn't be any issue with this. We'll just do a little check. Where's this thing? Just gonna, sorry, you can see, I'm sure. Oh, my wrist is terrible. Oh, wow. There's a little bit of finish there that was hanging over, but nothing major. And there's a little bit of kind of dirty old, it looks like it's either been oversprayed later in life, or maybe it's just the original finish that's just gone very dirty and dark. So give a little cut along the edge there, and then a little cut along here just to make sure it's separate. Okay, now we're going to get a little tap going. Okay, so we're going to see whether this wants to come out or not. It's sat in a little bit. It sits down inside of the veneer, so it has a little bit of. It doesn't want to come out by tapping backwards, so we'll go with a little bit of downwards tapping. See if we can drift it. It doesn't want to do that either. So it's one of those things that if we don't get any success, it might be better that we cut it. I mean, it's certainly moved in being tapped. It's got a bit of movement. It's leant back a fair bit. It has some movement in there. See if we can get it. All right, that's fair enough. Get it to wiggle and come out. There we are. Sort of hollowed out there. Okay, we'll worry about that and put the new one on in a bit. Now, what we're going to do is just going to make a small adjustment on the truss rod and see if it does make any adjustment. So, turning around there. We're looking a bit backbowed there, so let's see if we get any happy counterclockwise adjustment to flat. Feels okay, which is good, and it's moved back, which is fine. yeah, happy with that. So in good shape, the truss rod, and it's adjusting like it should. So that's a major major relief. Okay, so next we're going to get a little bit of the old moisture up onto the fingerboard, and then we're going to also get this thing. Hold tight. Come around there. Thank you. Stay on there. Sorry if I bashed you there. Okay, so we have our special nice little pulling pliers. Let me get the cloth with a bit of water on it. Where's it gone? There it is. Don't need a lot, just dampen it up. So some bit of watering. It's very light. I mean, it's only say hardly even damp. Now, what I don't know straight away from this is how these Fretless Wonder frets will respond to being lifted, or how they will lift. So a standard guitar will typically, you will grab it from one end and lift it up. So let's see if we get that's very, well, we might get a bite, but it's very tricky. So let's see if we get any contact with the blade under this end, because sometimes a blade can give you a good start. That's very tightly fitted indeed. Wow. We could be in, now this is where my hands are gonna put up a fight. Okay, let's see if we can get any purchase. We might have to do some careful working down here to get in, especially if the build up under here is very solid and old. We've got a bit of purchase under there, but I don't know. So I found in the past sometimes when the fret lifting thing, this thing here, when they can't get a bite, I found in the past sometimes a blade can just get that little start of a lift under there. So let's see if this puts some heat into there, see if we get a bit of bubbling going on. What I really just want to begin with is just a little movement just on this end bit. Okay, that's fine. I've got a little bite down there. That'll be fine, and we'll come back and do the rest. So I think what I'll do is I'll just get the heat into this bit down this end and see if I can just get the whole start bite on each of these. There we go. That's good. So a bit slow, but slow and careful is what I would like. So the idea about putting a little bit of back bow, or not back bow, but at least taking the relief out of the neck, is you want to help the fret tang, you want to help the fingerboard release the fret tang. So if you bend it even towards or slightly into the back bow position, then you do get a bit of a better chance of pulling the tang up and out. Okay, these are good. So I think funny part is while there's a hint of the tang, sorry, a tiny hint of nib on this side, there's none on that side, so they're quite different. But there's nothing to work with on either side. So I can see there's a lot of oil bubbling away under here. Now it's just about got a bite there. So we're going to just basically walk our way up here, and then I'll come back and use the soldering iron to warm again as I go across. I'll put a little bit more moisture on there. Sorry about the hands getting in the way. It's just critical that I get this start bite before anything else. If you find yourself cutting into a flat fret like this, you may find you've only got the other end to attack, and then once you attack the other end, you may find that you've run out of places to have a go at. It's gone over the top, damn it. That's going to make it really hard. Damn you. No, that's gone over the top too. Might just got a bite in there. Whew, only just, but it's mashed it up. That's okay. Well, you've not got a good measurement for the end of the fret because of that, but it should be all right. So it's very easy to cut along the top if it doesn't come out that first go. And these are as thin as they can be, really. So it's a combination of getting a hard enough bite downwards to begin with, and yeah, without overstressing everything. So I've done the unthinkable. Because of this wrist, I've had 2 whole days this weekend off, in inverted commas, and I haven't been up to the workshop and done any guitar work. I've been obviously doing marketing-y things and buying parts and organising things, but yeah, I had to forbid myself to come up here on the weekend, because I just thought if I don't leave this wrist to recover a bit, I'm going to be in trouble. But of course I can feel straight away how much I need to use it. So the idea is I'll pull out these here frets, and then I will use each one as a guide to size down the new ones. And what I want the new ones to be able to do is to obviously fit in perfectly the same size. So I want to trim them and hand craft them to the exact same size as the originals. And then it's a matter of cleaning out the fret slots, which is quite a challenge, but again, we'll spend time on it and we'll get it right. And then once the slots are clean and we're confident the depth and everything is right and the width is right, then we'll tap in the new ones. And we can use CA glue. It's funny, you get some people. I was reading somebody this afternoon actually who talked about they did a damn over the top, come on, up and under. They did full refurb on something old, and they swear by using glue, CA glue, because they think their argument was that it enables the transfer of vibrations. I think that's a bit not sensical, but anyway, my main concern is really making sure nothing sticks up. So a little bit of glue can help with that. It's a little bit difficult to apply it. In this case, you might probably have to apply it first and then tap down. And you'd be amazed how quickly the glue sometimes goes off, quicker than you really want it to. Okay, it's all going all right so far. Almost there. So once I've got these ends lifted, then we'll go all the way back and we'll use the heat more along here to pull the frets out, and then we'll place them all one by one into the spongy thing over there, so they're kept in relation to their replacement, their direct replacement. There we go. 4 more to do on this end, and we'll just go along from this end all the way across. Yeah, so yeah, some people do use that sort of I don't know what you call it, the clamp made by StewMac, but I tend to take this strap button out here and I just tap down onto this solid part here, and then use the support cork support, neck support core for the rest of it. So it's just a matter of making sure you get a reasonable downward force onto it to make it work. There we go. So there's a lot of slow stuff in refretting usually, especially when you've got an older guitar like this. Come along now. Okay. Last one to lift. Last one lifted. Let's come back to here. Let's put a bit more moisture on. And let's get the thing out like so. My hand's always going to be in the way here, so I apologise for that. So the idea now is just to get some more heat into it, and then we'll walk this along to bring it up. Funny, I keep thinking there's no spring on this tool, which I find really odd. there and there. So there's the first one out. And you can see there's a kind of line of grime that goes along there, but it's not so bad. They can sometimes, if you get stuck and it won't come up, sometimes you have to do a little bit of a side-to-side wiggle, but you don't want to. You try and avoid doing that because you don't want to press down at either side of this pincers things to press down into the wood. Okay, so we just walk our way along. And the heat hopefully just creates a little bit of moisture or steam from the moisture that we put on. With a bit of luck we get tang coming out a bit easier. One, two, three, and four. Let's keep them in line. I came across a chap, a luthier in Trinidad and Tobago, on the Facebook luthier forums yesterday, which surprised me. I don't know why. It's like, why wouldn't there be people doing this kind of work in Trinidad? But it was kind of interesting to me because that's where I was born, and I feel very attached to the old place, the islands. And the guy is also a player a guitar player in a rock band gigs. I think some covers and some original things in Trinidad. So it was interesting to hear, because whenever I was in Trinidad and Tobago, I can't think I ever listened to a rock band. I think it was mainly soca variants of so to hear a heavy rock sound coming out of people in Trinidad was funny, but why would it be? Plenty of fans of such music. Made me think about the humidity aspect owning guitars. I had my guitar. The guitar I had in Trinidad in 1983. I think I was there for about a year, and it was my Squier JV Strat, which was, I guess, I bought it that same year, so really it was only a few months old before I took it off to the humid Caribbean. I stayed there for the best part of the year, but of course not being informed about anything to do with guitars in those days, I didn't really know anything about setups or what the wood does in different climates and so on. I just played the thing and it seemed to be okay. But of course it was very humid there most of the time. So you see, we're doing all right. We're moving along. Anyway, I guess that's the thing that makes you realise how tiny the world became when the internet came up. And people who've always had it don't know how big the world seemed when we were kids or young people in the pre-internet days, you know. For example, I always think about when I was sort of in my 18s, 19s, whatever, 20, I would hitchhike places in the UK, and you'd sort of have a vague idea of where you were going, and you'd set off, and of course you had no phone. You had an address, maybe if you're going somewhere new to a friend, visit a friend somewhere, you'd have an address, you knew what town it was, and you looked in a big book of AA travel or something, and you worked out, you'd made a note of the best motorways to take, and you'd written down a few on a little piece of paper, and you'd made a sign based on where you thought you were going. So I remember going from London to Wales, for example. You make up a sign saying M4 Wales on your bit of cardboard with your marker pen, your Sharpie marker, and then you'd take the tube up to Hammersmith and walk up to just before the flyover, and you'd loiter around there, which was a pretty lousy place for anyone to pick you up, but they still managed it on the slip road, although they weren't technically allowed in those days, and certainly not now. But yeah, you'd stand on the slip road leading up onto the M4 where it flies over Hammersmith, and if you were lucky, some kind soul would stop and take you. Usually, I mean, it was pretty straight all the way, because they were either going to Bristol, usually Bristol or Wales, Bristol, Cardiff, Newport, one of those sorts of places. And occasionally you'd get some clever person who would make you run for their car, and then they'd pull away as you got there. That wasn't very often, but they thought they were very funny when they did that. See you run, and to know that they'd raised your hopes and dashed them again. But to be fair, that was really very rare. So the majority of people were just very helpful and kind. There were one or two strange, inappropriate things that happened. As you could probably imagine, you know, a young chap travelling on his own, hitchhiking, gets picked up by a slightly older, middle-aged chap or whatever, you know, and sometimes some inappropriate suggestions might be made by the driver, I mean, but it was never felt nervous about it. You could always handle the situation and say no thanks, and to do it without being kind of violent or reactive or freak out. So yeah, that was the grand old day. But the beauty of it is when you used to get somewhere, somebody, maybe they didn't go all the way to somewhere, and they'd drop you at a roundabout that you'd never really heard of or seen or didn't know existed, because you didn't pay attention to it in your A to Z map or your, what was it, right, Reader's Digest map of the world, a map of British motorways. And you'd get off, and they'd stop at the only safe place they could stop, and you'd be somewhere in the middle of the British countryside on perhaps a summer's day, and you know, maybe no cars were going by for a while, and it would suddenly be all quiet, and you just, in the days before phones and internet, you were just there. You experienced it completely. You was nowhere to go, and nothing to, you know, distract you, no Facebook to check in with, or no emails to check, or no Google Maps, anything like that. So you were just there, and you were either there in silence, or you sang to yourself, or when you waited for another car, or you tried to figure out, using your best guess, which was the best road to aim for now. particularly if you didn't know where you were, you really had to, right, I'm going to take a pot luck and go in this direction, and if it's wrong, then I'm going to end up in Bonnie, Scotland or something before I know it. But you because of that, you felt miles away. When you were in some part of the country you didn't know, you really felt distant from your own home and where you started. And it, the idea that you might somehow, you were hoping that it would all come together, and in that same space of a day you would miraculously, with help of good people, find yourself close to or very near the place you wanted to get to. And the sort of sense of achievement of getting there without all of this equipment and data to tell you where you were, and to check in with people and let them know you're going to be late. You were just on your own adventuring. And the same went for when you were abroad. There's never again going to be a feeling of being away and abroad as there was in the pre-technological era. The whole generation has lost it, and they don't know because they didn't know what it was like before. And yeah, there are some great things that you get with your digitized equipment that tells you everything you need to know. But you also lose something, You lose the far off sense of adventure and the distance and the mystery of being somewhere out of reach of your family, so far out of reach, that you just can't be in touch with them. You might send them a postcard if and when you ever finally arrive. Okay, so look, we've done this bit. Now I brought an extra battery charger so that as we go further and further on into this thing, because it's probably been 47 minutes now, this thing, I've probably got enough memory now, but I usually run out of batteries. So what I can do is, when it starts to look like it's wearing out, I can plug it into the charger and keep it going. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little file and I'm going to run it across this area here, and basically just the either side of the fret slot, and trying to smooth it down and keep it make it nice and smooth, but without going too far either side of the slot, because it gives a little bit of a sanded look, and obviously I don't want that to stick out too far. But the nice thing is it's not actually any lighter than the rest, so even though if I go over it slightly, that's going to work. You can see it, but once we've oiled it later. Now what I can tell you is that it's really low. It sinks low into the wood. You can really feel that. Wow, that's bashed in or something. So the idea would be, when we come to do our replacement, we go as close as we can with the you can't see it, sorry about this. Yeah, we want the tang overhang to fit in there as close as possible. I can't really show you very well, but yeah, so that you can see how that overhang, we want that to go right into the slot. Now we may have to go through all of these and cut them back a tiny bit, but we're also going to need to cut them back a tiny bit at the edges so that we get a nice flush fit. And what we'll do is we'll take the measurement of the original one and go from that. So we've got loads of excess on there, sorry, see that? Original and the new one on top. So we've got loads to cut off before we tap it in. So really, the truth is, there is no overhang, no tang overhang on this. It goes right up to the edge of the crown, or such as the crown is. So technically, we could cut this all back, and we could start manually by cutting it all back to probably about a millimetre we'd probably get away with quite nicely. So just as an experiment, we go a millimetre, really. So we're getting closer, or I'm taking it in closer to the right size, and then probably I'll just put this on the sanding belt and just bring this back in until it's almost exactly the same. Now what I'm not confident about is I think we do need to go a tiny bit in on the overhang, and the reason for that is because I'm not sure we can get absolutely up into the corners. There may be a tiny bit of stuff caught in the corners, so we have to be realistic. I think that's about right. So once we get there, that will stick in like that, and we'll go just take a bit off these ends and make it match up with number 1's length over there. So I think what I'll do now is I'll probably just go through all of these and just take it down to 1 millimetre or so past the ends, because it's just a lot of material we don't need. We're not going to overhang the plastic because the original didn't, so we're going to just end up with it ready to fine tune. But that's the frets part. So I've distracted myself now. Oops a daisy, sorry everyone. Focused. Yeah, well, I've distracted myself because I need to go and do all of the slots with my sanding thing, but that's okay. I've now got this in mind, so I'm going to whiz through this, and then when I've done that, I will probably take a break while I do the rest of these, because it's going to take me a while. So that's okay, and I can probably do a bit of charging at the same time. I've got some new sanding 800 grit on my little sanding belt sanding thing, to allow me to fine tune these without too voracious a grit, which is quite good. It's better when it's just slightly slower. So I think the idea of going down in, cutting bit by bit to where you need to be is a lot better than taking off great swathes of it with a end beveling file. So kind of working carefully towards where you need to be is a good way to go about it, and it's the most gentle way when you come to think of the guitar you're doing it with. So once I've done these clip backs, I'll then go back to sanding across the fret tangs, keeping in mind that it is, as I say, it's quite a drop. There's quite a sunken area in these. I'm really surprised how deep it is. And then what I'll do is I will then spend some time cleaning out the slots and getting as much of the grime out of them as possible, so that they will accept the new tangs with without complaint and without sticking up. Yeah, so going back to the days without electronic stuff, when we used to go away in the olden days, you'd go to another country, and it took ages, as it still does, to get anywhere. But by the time you got there and you were exhausted and sort of jet lagged and your brain was all phased, you'd sort of wake up, and then you'd be in this, you'd get asleep and then wake up in this far off place, and you would be absolutely, it would wash over you how strange and distant it was, how far it was from where you started out from 24 hours ago. Especially when the temperature would be so different, and the greenery and the vegetation and the languages and whatever, everything would be just mind-blowingly different, and you wouldn't have familiar stuff to come back to, other than maybe if you brought a book or a tape or something to listen to. But you wouldn't come back to your hotel room and jump immediately onto Facebook and get on the Wi-Fi and check your stuff and whatever. Yeah, or upload your stuff to Insta. And so you were immersed completely in the place you were, and you really felt it. It felt weird and slightly scary as well, and it was one of the best feelings about traveling places, was how far away and how slightly beyond comfortable you felt, just outside of being comfortable. And that was one of the biggest thrills of traveling away long distances to the other side of the world. And I think the first time it really changed for me is when Claire and I went to Maldives in 2010, and I think even in 2010, I think we were able to. There was Wi-Fi in the office, kind of main office down by the jetty of this resort, and so we could go there and read books and watch the TV or use the internet, and we'd go there and rent some internet time, and then end up speaking to my dad or something, calling him and saying, look, we're here in the Maldives and this, that and the other. And it just seems so wrong in a way to check in, and you do it because you think it's something to do, but it seems so wrong to check in and be connected with the homestead, and you're really so far away in a completely different place. Anyway, right, I'm going to get a drink, switch this off. I'm going to be kind of cleaning up this piece of stuff while I go, and then I'll come back when this is done and this is scraped out. What I'll do to show you is I'll use my little Hosco thing, and it'll go in there, and very carefully, you've got to be very careful at this point, just clean out the slot, and you've got to be careful not to pull it and yank it up against the binding. So we're trying to get a sort of bite into the grime so it clears out, but we've got to avoid it getting stuck into the other end. So you push one way and pull the other, and then often I'll go over the whole thing with the back end of one of these, because you can sort of control it quite well, and then go over it with some canned air. So the idea would be eventually we'd end up with the slots cleared, and we would be sort of in a position almost ready to tap that in. And we can also check the things like the tang width. If we can find where that's gone. So the tang width is probably, I would expect it to be the same. On this it's going to be 0.6 on the thinnest part, and on the original one it's 0.6 on the thinnest part. So this should be the same. We should be able to just tap them straight in. But anyway, as you can probably see here, I've got the two lines of frets together, and what I'll do is I'll do all of this sanding and stuff, cleaning up the surface, and then I will I'll use my little, whatever that thing's called, miniature belt sander, to get these absolutely down to not only length but also just round them off so that they're almost ready to just be tapped in, and then we'll come back at it. So it's quite a while from now, but it'll save you watching repeats of what I've just done. Okay, well, we've jumped ahead, but I thought it's a good time to come back in. I'm already on my way. Now what I'm doing is, perhaps I'll show you how I'm doing this, just out of interest's sake. So what I've got, I'm going fret by fret now, pulling out a pair from my list there, and I'm measuring the size of the original one exactly, 51.5. Then I'm checking this one against it, and we've got just over 51.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then take this over to the little wheel over here. I'm going to do a little bit of cutting. So I'm just going to do a bit on here. This takes time. So almost there. Checking it, trying to get more within. Make sure I'm exactly where I want to be. Hot. Okay, that's good. Move a tiny bit off the tang. Round the tang off. And then I'm going to round off the end of the fret. Okay. So a bit noisy and stuff, but here we are. Back to the one fret in question. And then we just look at it here and we're good to go. So what I do then is I double check and have another go at the there's some old glue in here, some probably hide glue right down the bottom of this, well, near the further down these slots, which are making it very hard. It's like the only thing I can think of the consistency is like coming across a boiled sweet, the bottom of this hole. British people will know what the heck I'm talking about, but so it's not ideal. I'm afraid it's not fully cleaned out. As good as I can get. So now I come to here and I position this in the best place possible, and I'm going to get my 7.25 first of all. I'm going to tap this down so. And I'm going to go with the 9.5 just to press it down in the middle so it's properly spaced. And have a look, and it looks good. So this is what I'm doing. I'm working that way, and I'm going to get to about here, and then I'm going to switch to putting the caul underneath it. So it's a very slow process. You'll notice I'm not putting any glue under here at the moment, any glue in the mix, and I think I'll get away with that. I'm looking at the frets and they're all very slightly different lengths, and this is always the way it's going to be, unfortunately. Very, very slightly. And I'm just trying to stay, well, what am I trying to do? I'm doing the exact length of the ones in question, so I can't get more accurate than that. So right to the edge, 51.10, and then we measure this and we see the exact 51.10 is going to be a little bit too wide on the thing, so I'm going to have to cut this back a tiny bit. That's the first thing. 51.10. So we want it to be, we want the tang to be less than 51.10, because 51.10 has got to be the whole length. So we need the whole piece to be 51.10, and right now that's quite a lot longer. So blimey, we are miles longer. How did that get? I think we might have got one out of order here. That's all right, we'll live with it. So I have to work my way around it. So we are too tiny, a little bit more. I'll take a tiny chunk off here with this. Oh, my hand. Oh. Okay, so we're going to go take a bit off here, pardon the noise. managed to go a fraction too small with this one. Damn it. Yep. Reject. So I'm going to take a piece of this. It's really annoying. Ow! Right, let's start off with a little chop here. And we go along, we'll go there to there, and we'll do a marker like so. Chop this off. Noticing while I'm handling this guitar, a sticky, tarry substance is coming off on my hands. It's coming from the top and from the sides as well. It smells like tobacco, believe it or not. Yeah, it smells like tobacco. And also I'm really annoyed. My Hosco expensive bloody thing, that junk, I have to either resin that back in myself or complain and get another one. Anyway, yeah, so I'm picking up this filthy black tarry resin. Could very well be from nicotine. I don't know if Mark's dad was a smoker in his day. I mean, most people were for a long time, myself included. So, yeah, we shall. I'll have to ask him. Right, I'm going to go and try and get this down to correctly. Bear with me. It's losing its cutting power, but I don't really want to use it on this one. It's a bit too hungry. It's hot, I tell you. We've got about a mil to go. One mil under. So difficult to use on that big one. Nice length. Rounded, undercut, everything's good. Line it up, line it up, line it up, line it up. Hope it doesn't move when you tap it down. I've never liked using the hammer directly on the frets themselves. And then we go to the 9.5. Good. Well, that's my way of avoiding the fingerboard edge. But look at that. That's horrible. Stinky. Anyway, we shall find out, but I think it is nicotine. So I'm going to carry on doing this, and I will save you the grief of worrying, because if I can get all of this fretted without glue, it'll be much nicer for me. I'd be quite happy. That's the wrong piece. I shouldn't be measuring that one. I should be measuring this one. 50.6, and we have slightly too long. Oh, my wrist. So we'll cut off a bit of this. 50.6. All right, take off exactly that much. Yeah, a little bit off this end. 50.6. Almost there. How does this happen? That's the killer, that one. I go and try and make a nice narrow one. Well, I could get away with that. Put that one there. We'll do that one there. Let's see if we can cheat the system. So that's 3 along. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 along. Can we get rid of this one here? Can we do it? I think we can. Let's put this one away. And let's take that one out. And this one is meant to be. We've done it. Ah, right, so we need this one again. 50.55. 50.55. Am I losing my mind? Really? Really? This has got to go there. That's got to go in there. Right, that's good. Take a bit off here. To there. That's the right gap. And we've got about 1 millimetre to go. I'll go both sides. Slowly. Backwards and forwards, roundabouts. There we go. That'll do. Right, I'll stop now and I'll see you again in a bit. Okay, so filthy hands, but we're at the end of the fretting process. So there we have them, all tapped in without the need for any glue. Okay, I might run some super glue wicked in there underneath there. What I don't know is immediately what the immediate prognosis for levelness looks like. Feels pretty good actually. Wow. Blimey. That is unusual. Holy cow. A tiny, tiny bit there. That's better than I've had in a long, long while. Wow. Tiny bit there, sorry. Tiny bit there. That's amazing. I'm really pleased. Phew. I mean, they are, you know, it's hand finished, so you're free of the edge. They're all rounded as possible. Let me feel this one up here. Where was I looking? Meep, 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 meep. A little tiny thing, but we probably tap that in. Anyway, I won't do it while I'm holding this camera with the other hand. All right, so 11th fret, let's just go back to that one. So we've done, I'm going to take this home, keep it safe because it's such a special guitar, and then we'll be back tomorrow to continue. We'll get onto the wiring while this is apart like this, and then we'll get on to precision leveling the frets and setting everything up. All right, see you tomorrow. Okay, so it's the next day and I'm at home because my wrist really didn't survive yesterday's fretting. So I've brought tools home and I'm taking it slowly to get this job completed at home. Yeah, in the sort of comfort of home, being able to stop and start whenever I need to and take a break. So it's going to be all a bit funny and out of normal. There's the cat, one of three. So it's all going to be a bit difficult and different, one camera. So I've got a sort of thing here where I've got it possibly stacked up on a thing that might just let me do the thing. So it's not the best view in the world, but I'm trying to do that in such a way that you can see what I'm doing, but it just holds itself there. So are we running? We are running. So what I'm going to be doing at the home base, what I've done since yesterday, is I fitted the new bridge. I put a nut on. It's temporary, but it needs some adjustment, but we'll worry about that afterwards. And I'm basically going to precision level the frets, and I've set the action where I want it. So as always, I'm just going to calibrate my banana fret leveling file, and which I've already just done, and I'm going to get on and do the leveling. So I'll probably do a few different stops and starts. So I was pleased to see noisy yesterday when I did a little test. Pleased to see that the leveling, the frets were fairly level as fitted. So I don't expect to need to do too much here, but we shall see. I brought it back. I wondered if I brought the right tools. Picked up a bunch of tools this morning just to make sure. So we've got a lot of room to play with these frets because we don't want too tall. It would be a big shock to Mark if it's massively taller than it was before. So we've got loads of room. I can see, a fair bit. There was a little high spot there, a couple of high spots there. But we shall listen and see how things work out. So the method I'm using is really good for precision leveling. I should be able to just okay, so all of the individual notes are playing, and we'll kind of leave that there like that, and we'll move on to the B track. What I'm going to obviously then check is when we get to the G track, we'll check to make sure that bends on the high E all play without choking. So I did, off camera, I did add some glue to these frets, did a little bit of wicking a little bit of super glue down under the frets, and then a bit of fingerboard cleaning up afterwards. And there's a sneezing cat. And it was one of the reasons why I decided to do that. It's not a bad thing to glue, as I mentioned yesterday, but I thought it might as well clean up some super glue afterwards, because this fingerboard is really impregnated with nicotine and tar. Oh god, my wrist, really painful. So here we're choking out on the G track, which we'll now take care of. Yeah, so it was really important to clean up this fingerboard. So I've done a little bit of scraping, partly to clear up the super glue residue, but also because it was filthy. So I checked with Mark this morning, and it turns out his dad was, I think, quite a smoker at some point in his guitar playing career. So it's no, you know, it's not a surprise that that was the thing we all did. I was a smoker myself, and you know, guitar players, many a guitar player would have been a smoker in those days. So it's amazing how much tar has come off and is still on this guitar actually. And I was very careful. Enjoying eating your bit of pulled pork on the floor. Yeah, I had to be very careful will have to be very careful to clean up as much as I can without risking the finish, because I'm not 100% sure that this nicotine, or this tar I should say, probably more likely, hasn't already done something over the years to the finish. It feels a bit ropey in certain places. So I've got a couple of high frets up here, which I'm taking down now, which is fine. Those would have been the ones choking out before. Tries to move the thing without hurting hands. A little bit of rattle somewhere. So we've got a little dip here. So we've got a combination of we're fretting in a dip, and we're pushing up into slightly tall frets. So that's one of the slightly challenging things about any neck. That's when the neck is under compression, it crinkles in a certain way, and each neck does it differently. So you have that's most of what we're tackling when we're doing precision fret leveling like this. So I'm going back over the B track, and I'm going to come back again at the G again, because I'm now seeing that sort of area on the fingerboard is a little more bumpy than I at first had thought. Oh my hands. So again, another run on the G track. Switching the tool around back to front, just because I get a feeling that it's good to do that. So how much to work this beam now on in this track is a sort of thing that comes with experience. This is much gentler, by the way, than using a radius block, which usually would have something like, I don't know, 240 grit paper on it, something like that. So we've got what's showing up as a couple of high spots here, and then a low spot, a low section here. So the problem, as I said, with the low section is when you fret in a dip, it makes the next one relatively high. Now that's coming across, choking out here, but that's actually in the D track. So let's move on to the D track. I mean, we're starting to bend right over to the other side now, but we've got the G track clear, which is okay, so it gives me a good clear idea. So I'm going to again calibrate. If I need to make an adjustment to the rod, I will, but it seems to be the same all the way across, which is good. Oh, my right wrist is knackered. Yeah, I can barely make my fingers work at the moment. It's all the little muscles in here. I had a bike smash. All those little metacarpals, tarsals, whichever the ones in the wrist are. All the faces of them, they're all supposed to gently press together and rub past each other. And I tore all of, or mashed up all of those faces together when I had a crash. So not great fun, but the surgeons at the time who patched me up said that you know, their prognosis was that I would have trouble later on with arthritis, and they were right, and it's getting worse at the moment, which is annoying me. So this one is standing up a little tall, this one of all of them, but we're taking it down, which is probably better than giving it some more whacking. This is pretty good. We're on we've got the action set pretty low as well, so it's a challenging target that we're aiming for, so I'm quite happy with the way that's going. Like I say, you'll get one or two frets here that are getting hit a bit harder than others, but once we're sanded and polished out, the whole thing will be pretty nicely done and play nicely. So again, we're perhaps a tiny bit of adjustment now, the tiniest amount really. Yeah, that's good. So we're now on the A track, as I call it, and once I've leveled the frets, I will then recrown them, and then we'll polish them, sand and polish them out. And once I've done the sanding and polishing out, then it will be time to look at these switches, which are fabulous, heavy-duty old switches, but I think they may have had their day. There's definitely a problem with them, and if we can't get them to function nicely, we may have to replace them with modern, much lighter versions, I'm afraid. I mean, we could hunt around for originals, that's always a possibility, but I'm not sure we'd find something that would be date correct or period correct. Ow. There's something in this guitar, the wiring or something, that is rattling slightly. Well, not that. Knocked the string off the saddle. it is something with a slight rattle. It's you have to be careful to distinguish between something rattling in the frets and just something in the body rattling, because it can trick you, and you can be trying to level things for ever and ever with no good with no good result, because it's not coming from there. So sometimes you have to have the experience to know which is which. So let's have a feel where we are. Okay. I think, oh, that's very high up. We've actually, yeah, we've got the pickups very high. We don't want that. So let's get a small screwdriver, take that down a tiny fraction. There you go. Yeah, they're both too high really, but let's bring that down somewhat. We don't want the magnetic pull to be too great on there. Okay, so I'm not going to worry too much about the intonation on this until we put the new Watsits on, but I'm just going to push these forward a little bit and see where we get to. Hello. Right. It's all about right. Okay, so let's see how the view is at the moment. Okay, there I am, not in the picture. Good. So if I just pull you from my little stand, having done the fret leveling, you can see a couple of places where it's taken a fair bit of material because the frets were slightly higher than everywhere else. Now it's not as a result of the fret leveling, it's more as a result of the compression of the fingerboard with the strings under load, which is really quite amazing, because I did a test up here and it was all pretty much rock free. So that's what we have to do when we're under load to make this play correctly, which is okay. That's what we have to do, and that's why I use that method of leveling. Right. Okay, so 20 minutes into this. What I'm going to do in a second is I'm going to put this back on here, if I can. Not the safest thing in the world. And I'm going to be looking to take care of, if I can make sure we've got light, but nothing in the picture. I'm going to make an adjustment to this, the height of the nut here. So obviously it's going to need careful measuring to find out what the gap is, the spacing is. So let me get a piece of paper ready. So we've got the action at the body end of the guitar set about right. So what I want to do now is just measure what the actions are here, and that will give me a clear idea of how much to take down from the bottom of this nut, which isn't yet glued in place. So we want the metric end of things, and let's take a 0.7 of a mil as a start point. Nope. Okay, let's go 0.2, 0.3, let's go to 0.5. Okay, 0.5. Let's go to 0.6. 0.6. 4 and 2, 0.6. Just about right. This is taller at this end. And now let's go to point. I think we did 7 before and it didn't work. So let's go 0.65 for this treble end. 0.65. Okay, so it's 0.6. So, oh God, I can't write. Treble end equals 0.6. So we want to minus 0.3 ideally from that. The bass end is going to be taller by the looks of it. Now, there's two ways of doing this. We could either cut down the slots here, which I'll try and avoid doing, or failing that, we'll take down a certain amount from the underside of the nut before we glue it in place, which I'll aim to do. So this is 6.5. Let's go to 7.8.8. Let's see what we got. Okay, 0.8. And let's go to 0.9. So we got 7 and 3, 0.9. So we could say it's probably just about 0.1. So what did we say? 0.9 plus 1 is 1 millimeter. Okay, we'll call it 0.9, which would be minus 0.6 off there. And that looks all about good in a straight line between the two. So that gives me a good guide of where to go. Now, I'm not going to take the strings right off just yet, because I'll do the work on the nut, and then we'll come and use the strings to hold the nut down as we sort of glue it in place. So, but once that's done, we'll take the strings off and then we'll recrown the frets. And then we'll be ready to tape up the fingerboard and polish it all out. Okay, so there's my nut all in perfect shape. So what we'll do is we'll take the things we need, painful, over to, well, what we'll do first is we'll measure this nut. So I draw a nut. And there's my badly drawn nut, and what I want is the measurement in 2 places. I'm going to measure the distance in the treble high E slot to the bass, which is 6.7, and then on the bass side, which will usually be a little bit less because you can get the caliper right into the slot, so 6.4 There you go, a little bit less, 6.4. Now we're going to take off 0.3 on this side, which leaves us a target of 6.4 on the treble side, and we're going to minus a 0.6 on that side, which gives us a target of 5.8 on this side. 6.4, 5.8, add that 6.4, add 0.3, 6.7. So that's my target to work the nut. So I'm going to take that into another part of the work zone. Move. We'll bring a sounding board and we'll bring our camera. Bum, ba, bum, 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 bum. Let's put it over there and see what we can see. There we are. Whoa, sorry. I'm so sorry. Right, so that's all we need to see really. So we have, the important thing now is to be able to reduce this base of this nut in a way that takes twice as much off the bass side as it does off the treble side, but also altogether keeps the sides perpendicular so it stands up straight. So we're going to need to find a way of doing it that feels good with bad wrists. So we want to press harder on the bass side here. So I'm going to start with a bit of just extra push on the bass side so we can take a bit down, and we'll need to then sort of follow up on the treble side and balance it out. So on the bass side we're wow, according to that it's nearly there already. 6.7. That's slightly changed. Typical, isn't it? I can't see what I'm doing in this light. Right, so that's gone backwards a little bit. So I need to stand this up a bit. Trouble is I don't have very good grip and I don't have a board that's stuck in place very well. So I'm just now trying to stand this up straight. Let's see what we've got. Okay, a little bit more straightening required. Sorry about this, not very great camera work, I know. 6.5, so we're nearly there, just a little bit more straightening, I think. Of course, if we go right over the line on this, then we're in a position where we have to tidy up. So we still want to pull a bit more on this side. Okay, very difficult. Let's see what we've got. 6.4, 6.5, a little tiny bit to go. 5.93, a little tiny bit to go. So I'm just going to basically now concentrate on getting this to stand up straight. So this side needs to push back a bit against there. Close, 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 close. Let's see what the measurements are. 6.45, just a bit over. 5.98, a little bit to go. That's okay. What are we doing now? Square woods. Tiny bit at the front, tiny bit at the front. Okay, I think we're good. we should be all right. Let's take that back. Let's see. See where we get to. So, going to tighten up the D and the G first. B. There's still a bit more to do. Just make sure, according to the light, that's in. I see. Not sure that's sitting down properly. Curses. Get in there and stay there. Right, that's now seated down in the correct place. Something holding that up. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Let me zoom out. Zoom out. Something like so. It won't go stay in tune yet because these are the old strings. My very poor wrist. So what we'll do is I will just tune this up, play it for a minute off camera, and then stick it down, and then come back and do the recrowning. Okay, I'll see you in a minute when we're ready for the fret recrowning. Hold on, preserve the battery. Okay, so I'm going to just do a little bit of work up here to just show you how I do the fret crowning, and I'll probably do it standing up better. The idea is to take away the square edges of the frets that we've just levelled or flattened, if that's what we've done, and the idea is to leave as much of a strip of black marker pen down the middle as we can. Which is very little metal being taken off here, so it really doesn't take long to do. We will find a bit more to do on frets down here. I'm just cleaning off the excess pen that sticks to the diamond powdery stuff. Not the best lighting compared to the workshop, so I'm not getting my usual eyeballing, but I think I can just about see enough to be working with. So that's what I'm going to do all the way down, and once I've done that, I'll go basically wipe off the dust, and then we'll mask off the whole fingerboard, and I'll sand and polish all the frets out, which will be a bit noisy, but I'll do that off camera. And so what I'll do in a minute is I'll come back and join you. Shh, dust. Come back and join you. Sorry, terrible camera work. See, I'm just recrowning those frets, leaving a thin line of black marker pen down the middle. You can just about see it. So once that's done, mask everything off with masking tape, sand and polish out, and then I'll come back to you when it's time to have a look in there, see what we can see. Okay, having done everything, what I'm looking for, I am looking for some strings. There they are. Yeah, I've done everything, polished out the frets. I've done a bit of cleaning on the neck to try and remove some of the gunge, but it's still some there. I've also sprayed these with, what do you call it, spray cleaner. They're very tightly fitted in here, so I really don't want to try and get them out or do anything to them. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. I think we have to kind of look at that as another day if they really are faulty. We'll have a listen, but the problem is getting to any of these pots and in this is an extremely tricky thing. There's almost no room anywhere. We shall see. I'm going to put strings on, I'm going to test play it, and then depending on what we find, I'm going to kind of look at it. I've got super glue stuck to my fingers. Anyway, so let's get this loaded up. I'm hoping that this thing will just play. okay. I mean, it plays fine fret wise. I'm hoping the electrics will not give us any trouble. So put these down there. I'm just going to thread these on. So normally I would be showing how I thread strings and stuff, but it's really difficult since I don't have my correct whatnot. So I'm just going to line these up and get them strung up as quick as I can, or as smoothly as possible. Okay. My concern about this finish is I think the oh, my wrist. I think that the nicotine, the tar, has destroyed the finish over the years. So I think it's trying to, I don't know about come off exactly, but I think it's giving up the ghost. And certainly along here, along the edge of the neck, it was absolutely completely covered in nicotine. So obviously, you know, when someone smokes, that's where you definitely put a load of nicotine down deposits with your fingers. But yeah, so we shall see. It's kind of one of those things where if it's really damaged long term, it might have to be refinished in the future, but I'm sure it will be playable. The only downside for me is that I can't give it a thorough scrubbing the way I normally would like to, because I don't dare destroy this finish in the process, or don't dare risk it coming off. Oh, my wrists are killing me. Fresh strings finally. So I'm just gonna, I won't do these up too tight, I'll just get them on lightly enough so in a minute I can adjust the height exactly. So we've got what would on the surface appear to be not a 12-inch radius, but like, if you remember, it's more like a 9-inch radius. So we know, oh God, it was my wrist. I don't have any flexibility left in there. Yeah, it's I don't know whether it was ever 12-inch radius from the start. You can never tell whether it's become that way over its long and much loved playing life. But either which way, we've got it set for 9.5 at the moment. I don't normally pull faces like this or grimace quite as much, but this hand is killing me. 3 and 4 and more. It's really difficult to get this to hold underneath and then keep it there while you do it up the other end. So I try and do it by pulling a whole fret's worth, but I think realistically I'm going to have to stand up and do this because I'm not going to get it done otherwise. So we've got the refret done, we've got the precision fret leveling done, and the action set perfectly the way we want it. So everything precision wise is done. We're just now restringing. I'm going to stretch the strings a little bit once they're on, and then after that it's play it and let it all bed in. I'm kind of pleased at how these frets turned out, because if I look back, I've never really, in the whole time, I've never been happy with the conventional or the standard fret end beveling block that everybody uses, or most people use for their frets, as I have done over the years, and it's just too destructive, and I just don't like it. So to be able to kind of do away with it and do frets this way, I think I might contemplate doing it more often. I did it once before on Bob's old Gibson J200 acoustic, and I think it's too much of a change for his liking, because it is, you know, you can feel them in a certain way. They're quite smooth, you can feel them, but they're better than those beveled edges, in the sense that you don't have to destroy the edge of the fretboard, which unfortunately you do when you're using the end beveling block. And it's okay for a brand new neck, or a neck I'm upcycling or something like that, but it's on a vintage guitar, really nice vintage guitar like this, I don't want to be trashing the edge of the fingerboard and having to kind of restore it with kind of touch-up finish. You know, it can be done. It's not that difficult to touch up with poly, or, you know, in this case a nitro, but it's much better if we don't end up doing that. So I think I will kind of concentrate more on this type of rounded edged frets in future. It's just far less destructive. There's something really crude about running up and down a fretboard that, you know, when you've gone to all that trouble to install new frets, and then you run this kind of destructive block up and down. Now this I can't do with this wrist. I just cannot do. I'm going to have to use the other hand and some bending help. Come on, you can bend, won't you? This is hopeless. I quite literally have to snap it. Yeah, so let me just snip all these flush if I can. Oh, Lordy. It's pretty poor to lose all physical strength for cutting wires like this. It's really not what I need. Don't have the strength with either hand at the moment, which is stupid. Might eventually get down to a cuttable thickness. Half cutting, nearly cutting it. Gee whiz. Not one of them has gone. Ah, one. That's finally, I got one. I've got the strength to cut. Two. The final two. Blimey. Right, just going to measure the height of the action, and we'll pretty much be done. Okay, here we go, down we go. That's where I do like these types of bridges, just how easy it is to roll things up and down like that. So much easier. There we have. Sounds like a banjo. Okay. So what we're going to do, every time you change your strings, I've done the nut part. So tuning stability comes down to two things: the amount of slack in your strings, unreleased slack in your strings, and the other half, think of it as 50-50, the other half is the condition or the material your nut is made of, how the slots are cut, and the first fret action that's set from the nut. To get those things right at the nut, you've got half the tuning stability taken care of, and then the other half is stretching out all the slack. And you have to do that several times, and you can see I'm doing it with the thumb and forefinger to push out the slack. There's more held in the coiled wound strings than there is, excuse me, in the plain strings, so you have to work a bit longer on those. But so you basically do it, detune it, tune up again, and then we do it all again. Stretch out. If you can be bothered, get behind, oops, go behind the saddle bridge as well. Stretch their little bits behind there carefully, and then all the way down the string again. Really, you want to do it until it stops going out of tune. Hurting my hand, as you can probably imagine. Yeah, this finish it's combined with tar at some point, or nicotine, and it's made a bit of a, it's great. It's not brilliant up close, it looks lovely still from a distance, but it didn't like its pub days, let's put it that way. At least not as much as we enjoyed those pub days, eh? Closer. Right, I'm just going to get a tuner across and a lead, and we're going to just check the intonation. Find where my Let's see if I can find it, otherwise we'll have to just do it by ear. By hand. Somewhere buried in all of this, but not easily findable. I'm sure I saw it just the other day, but the problem is I've just ended up with such a mess on this table that it's not to hand, easily to hand. Okay, well, in the short term, until I find it, I will work on the basis of doing it by ear. I find my little screwdriver. Where's it gone? Somewhere. No. Fine. So what I'll do is I'll take a note. Oh God! Off this amp here. Oh, my wrist. Oh God. Better. Good. He's a bit tall as well. Oh, my wrist. Oh, my wrist. So pickup heights are sort of subjective thing, and people's rule of thumb is often maybe a 3 millimeters from the lowest fretted note, but people like to experiment and find out their own settings, and the thing to do is, or the thing only to keep in mind is the closer they are to the strings, the more the magnets pull on the strings, and you might get some strange interference on the notes from the physical pull. But the closer the poles are to the strings, the greater the output, and the further away they are, the less the output, but the more tonal dynamics, apparently. And vice versa. Oh, my wrist. Now we're just going to work by ear. I think that's pretty close, but a tiny bit long, so I'm going to send this forward a tiny bit, because you get no easy reach on this string, on this screw. Sorry about terrible, useless camera work. I'm just trying to get this set on my broken wrist. It's not playing ball with me. Okay, push that one forward a little bit and check it. Yeah. Same for all of them, I think. Just roll them forward a tiny bit. Hopeless. When one hand doesn't work and you've got a rubbish reach anyway, because of the stupid design, you really don't get along very well. Okay, that's about right. That's about too long, fraction too long. Let's go down a fraction too long there, and we'll sort that out. Come on, there we go. Okay, ouch. Get back on the saddle. So humbucking, single coil. Okay, there we have it. Thanks for watching the slightly broken up into little bits recording. Yeah, very happy with that. Yeah, and a bit of contact cleaner and some proper toing and froing. It needs that physical movement more than anything else. It needs the cleaner, but it needs backwards and forwards when you just put the cleaner on to make sure that it does what you need it to do. It helps the contacts rub the grease off the one contact off the other. Now I'm going to leave this replacement bridge on there because it works absolutely fine. It's got a roller bridge and it's got a bit more room for intonation travel should it be needed. I'm going to put the strap button back on here, the truss rod cover on, and I'm going to have to use my good hand to move this little lamp in a minute. Yeah, I'll put a few bits back together and then we'll be ready to give Mark a shout. So I think the decision to not scrub this too clean was the right one. You know, although in some ways it'd be nice to rid it of all its slight stickiness, I don't think we can run the risk of damaging the finish. So just a quick show, like I've got a hole poked in me by a string. It's always the same. So there's my strap button, and we've got a truss rod cover, and we've got the 2 little screws that go with that. Now what else we've got is we've got the what I think is a broken off little piece to the saddle here, but I'll have a look at that afterwards. I have a feeling a piece broke off. It should have, yeah, it should have 2 little bits that fold back in. One of them snapped off, so it lines up, but it doesn't hold the thing in place, so we can sort of put it back on. I think, you know, to get another one, replacement Gibson one, or to buy some new saddles, I can put this together, like I say, but it doesn't really hold the pieces down, but it would kind of work. So I'm just going to keep that covered up. It's a Gibson piece, might be able to get some nice new what's-its for it. Nice new, got blood on this bag now, courtesy of the sharp strings. Yeah, we'll put that in there with those pieces, and those stay out because they're not needed. We'll put the old nut in there as well, and then we'll fit these bits onto here. So let's get these screwdrivers. Let's flip this over. Yeah, there's not, this finish on here is kind of giving way along the edge here. It's not, it's still nice and shiny, but it's yeah, it's had so much tar on it for so long that it's probably become some other chemical formula. I'm just going to get this down. This has been taken off more than a few times, judging by the state of the head of the nut, sorry, the screw head, I should say. Yeah, and then we'll just, I don't know what you can see down here. There we are, nearly finished. Dreadful camera work. There you are, L. Gibson. Here we go. The original slightly rusty screws. And a nice new black nut to go with the black appointed bits on here. I think that's a pretty good outcome. A very light first fret action as well. It's probably, and that's pretty good. There we are. So thank you for watching. Ooh, bad thumb. See you again soon.